Hey, you got your visa refused and now you are in panic mode. Well, let me tell you, first of all, that attitude is just not useful at all. And secondly, if you just panic, you run the risk to waste precious time that should be used to develop alternative strategies. I'm Eleonora, I'm a registered migration agent in Perth, Western Australia, and I'm the director at Green Wings Migration. Welcome to our YouTube channel, where we try to help as many people as possible to understand the Australian migration system and possibly help you directly as a current or prospective visa applicant. So today's video wants to explain that things can go wrong. You know, there is this idea that you apply for a visa and obviously you expect it to be granted, but sometimes that doesn't happen. And the reasons could be many. Sometimes could be very silly reasons, maybe stupid mistakes that were done, but sometimes the matter can be a little bit more complex, especially certain legislative criteria, not necessarily black and white, and there is a lot of discretion for case officers to, you know, put their genuine thought into deciding about your request. When this happens, it's not necessarily the end of the world. I mean, it's not the end of the world. In most cases, there is alternatives. Something that obviously comes into mind when you apply for a visa and you get rejected is that you might think that after that, that's it. You don't have any option B, any following step to take. This is because when you read the department website for most visas, there is a description that says you cannot apply for this visa if you had a visa previously refused. I find this sentence very misleading, and I still don't understand if they did it on purpose or if they just couldn't find any better way to formulate the sentence. But the thing is, yes, that's true. If you got a visa refused and you are in Australia, in certain circumstances, your options are limited, but in many other circumstances, you can definitely choose between several opportunities, several avenues to explore. The most common being obviously applying for a review through the Administrative Review Tribunal. Sometimes you might ask directly to the department to review their decision if you think that they made a blatant mistake. Sometimes you can simply reapply for the visa that you were refused for. And other times, you might simply consider alternative visa options if that one didn't work out. In a small, reduced, very minimal amount of cases, it is also possible to ask for the minister to intervene directly in your case through what is called a ministerial intervention. So let's check one by one these different options. Administrative Review Tribunal, that's the most common. In general, when you are in Australia and you are refused a visa, you might be able to apply for a review by the Administrative Review Tribunal. This is an organism, an institution that's independent from the department. They actually review many decisions, not only migration decisions, but what interests you is the migration division of the ART. Normally, you can appeal your refusal within 28 days, and when you do it, you will be put in a, how can I say that, very long waiting time, okay? So if you have been waiting a long time with the Department of Home Affairs deciding on your visa, be ready to wait even longer for the Administrative Review Tribunal. Be ready to wait even longer for the Administrative Review Tribunal to review your case. This is because obviously they receive many applications and the tribunal members are not as many. Why? Because they cannot be the average person. They need to be people that have true knowledge and deep understanding of the legislation to make sure that they will take the best possible decision based on the facts, based on the circumstances that are presented to them. However, you must remember something. Tribunal members cannot just decide to give you a visa simply because you look like a very good person. They have to act based on legislation. So in certain circumstances, you might have been refused for a criterion. There was, a gray area or something that required the case officer to put in their own judgment. In those cases, if you are able to present your case under a different light to the tribunal member, they might actually end up having a more favorable decision for you. But if you were refused a visa for a very black and white criterion and the law specifies that you were meant to do something and you didn't do that thing, there is no tribunal member that can save you. Yet, there is obviously a possibility to review a visa application as a strategy, because that gives you time, and in the meantime you can develop alternative options. But this definitely needs to be discussed in very much details with a migration agent or a migration lawyer, because you don't want to lodge a review application that is basically rorting the system just because it's convenient for you to lodge a review appeal. So make sure not to make that mistake and discuss your case with someone who can guide you legally and professionally into the process. Now, the second option is that certain sections within the department are open to revisit a decision to refuse a nomination or a visa application if you are able to show that the case officer committed jurisdictional error. Jurisdictional error is essentially where clearly the case officer applied the law in the wrong way. One section within the department that is open to do this is the section deciding on 482 visas. It is possible, after receiving a refusal, to send a very, well argumented email explaining why the case officer incurred into jurisdictional error. There is one negativity associated with this process: time frame. Because this process is not legislated, the department doesn't have to do it in any specific amount of time, unfortunately. Personally, I resorted to this option twice. I was successful in both occasions, but it took almost forever. I'm talking about 5 months each time to have a 482 nomination originally refused, then approved at departmental level without having to take it to the tribunal. Going through this route really depends on the time that the visa applicant has available. Because if you have someone whose visa, is about to expire and they become unlawful after the visa expires, then you don't really have the time to wait for the department to review internally a decision. So again, this option exists, but you must discuss it with a registered migration agent or a migration lawyer to make sure that it is the right path to follow for your own circumstances. When that is also not possible, then you can sometimes just reapply for the visa. The typical scenario for these cases is student visas when they are applied from overseas. If you apply for your student visa from overseas, you don't have review rights. If you want to obtain the visa, your only chance is to actually apply again for the same visa class, obviously trying to substantiate the request more. Because if you just apply using the same documents, the same information, you cannot expect the outcome to be different. On this point, we recently, just last week, had a great win. We had this man in his 40s applying for a student visa. Bit of a messy situation because the man also has family in Australia. So in the first instance, the Department of Home Affairs refused the student visa. The client came to us asking for help because he wasn't trusting the other agency any longer. And thanks to the great work of our registered migration agent, Stefania, the visa was eventually granted. So it is possible to just reapply for the same visa class, but obviously the second time around you must do a way better job because the department already has a preconception about your request not being genuine, not being correct, not being approvable. Sometimes again, case number 4, you can't reapply for the same visa because that visa is simply not going to fly. Maybe you were given the wrong advice, or you had the wrong assumption about your option. So a visa is not for you. You need to find alternative solutions. This is why, again, going through a migration consultation before starting to apply randomly for visas is so important. During the initial consultation with a registered migration agent or a migration lawyer, you are given the pathways. You are given, a clear picture of all the options in front of you. We like to put them in order of how appreciable they are, and then you start from the number 1. If it doesn't go well, you have number 2, number 3, number 4, depending on the circumstances. But if you just apply for something without having any clear idea of what can happen to your profile as a migrant, then you are not setting yourself up for success. And lastly, and very rare and very difficult, and just a very tiny amount of percentage of people can actually go through this route, is ministerial intervention. If you have applied for a visa, the visa was refused, and it seems like you have no other visa option, but your circumstances are so compelling, then the minister themselves can actually intervene for you and decide, disregarding any legislation whatsoever, to give you a visa, even if on paper it doesn't seem like you deserve one. You might see cases, for example, of humanitarian processes being dragged for 10 years, 15 years, reaching the minister, or maybe people whose health has been deteriorating so much in the time that they spent in Australia that the minister intervenes for them and allows them to stay. Again, your circumstances must be exceptional, so exceptional that it's not like you apply for ministerial intervention and the minister every day checks how many people have applied for his intervention, okay? So you need to be refused first. You need to take your refusal to the Administrative Review Tribunal. It's recommendable that you also obtain a referral letter from the tribunal that confirms that your case should be referred to the minister. With this referral letter, your request goes through an initial board, like a council, that scrutinizes and screens the applications and only selects the small number that are worthy of the minister's consideration. And again, because this is not something that is legislated specifically with timeframes, the minister doesn't have any set amount of time to look after your case. It could actually decide upon it 6 years after you made the request, or sometimes super quickly, in 24 hours, because he doesn't think that's suitable for him to decide or for her to decide if we're going to have a woman there. So just to recap, things can and do go wrong in Australia. That obviously does not define you as a person, but it simply means that something needs to be revisited in your strategy. And the way you can revisit your profile, it's either through an Administrative Review Tribunal application or asking, when possible, for an internal review at departmental level. Sometimes you can reapply for the same visa or change visa application. And lastly, some people might consider ministerial intervention. We at Green Wings Migration, we can help you through the 5 options, no problem at all. We do review appeals at the tribunal. We have helped people with the ministerial intervention in the past. We definitely assess your eligibility through the same or different visa options as well. So if you find yourself in need of help after having gotten your visa refused, please get in touch. You can find us online, www.greenwingsmigration.com.au, or feel free to send an email at info@greenwingsmigration. It's the best way to contact us. Sometimes because refusals require urgent attention, we have also introduced the urgent consultation service. So you can book on the same day or the next day with one of our expert agents. And obviously you can talk in more time, with more calm. The session is a little bit longer than the standard 30 minutes consultation. Just make sure that you bring along all the documents, all the supporting evidence around your refusal, and the agent will be able to help you out. Thank you for following us, and if you like our videos, don't forget to subscribe. Let the channel grow, because then we will be able to bring you more guests, more topics, more interesting content. See you next time.